Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashilakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivas Adi Gaur Bhakta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are embarking on a very important section of the whole Bhagavad Gita, which is the beginning point of the description of the Bhakti Yoga process. As we had mentioned before also, the central message of the Bhagavad Gita is Bhakti Yoga. And Bhakti Yoga is discussed elaborately from chapter 7 onwards. And the discussion spans until chapter number 12. So middle 6 chapters, they contain the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's catch the context first. So in the 6th chapter, which dealt with Dhyana Yoga or meditation yoga, Krishna in the 46th verse emphasized how important it is to become a yogi. So Krishna says that the tapasvibhyo adhiko yogi jnanebhyo api mato adhikaha karmibhyascha adhiko yogi tasmat yogi bhavarjuna. That if you are just doing tapasya, if you're doing austerity, and if you do not have yoga in it, and yoga meaning the element of connecting with the Supreme Lord, if that element is not there, you're just doing austerity, then that is not going to be good enough. If you are a jnani, if you are pursuing some knowledge, but you do not have the yoga aspect to your pursuit of jnana, then also it is going to be insufficient. And therefore, jnanibhyo api mato adhikaha. And if you are just engaged in your occupational activities, very responsibly, you're acting within this material world, even without attachment to results. But if still you are not trying to connect with the Supreme Lord in the process of yoga, then also it is going to be incomplete. So therefore, better than jnana is jnana yoga. Better than karma is karma yoga. Better than jnana is, better than dhyana is dhyan yoga. And therefore, Krishna says in the 46th chapter, the tasmat yogi bhavarjuna. The main thing that is going to lead you to success is yogi, being a yogi. And being a yogi meaning that you are connecting with the absolute truth, whatever you are doing. You're dedicating that for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. So now the question is that, okay, there are different flavors and forms of yoga. So which yoga is the best? So that's why 6.47th verse is the concluding verse of the entire 6 chapters covered so far, where Krishna is explaining that how out of all the yogis, the bhakti yogi is the best. So Krishna is saying that yoginam api sarvesham mad gatena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha. That out of all the yogis, who is the best? Who is dedicating one's mind in at the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So mad gatena antaratmana. So inside, the mind is brought in close touch with the Supreme Lord. Mad gatena making the mind go towards Krishna. And so that is the internal disposition. And externally, how one is acting? Externally, bhajate, shraddhavan bhajate. So with faith, one is engaging in the process of devotional service. So Krishna is saying that one who is able to do that, that person is yukta tama, is the best of all yogis. So we understand that just before the 7th chapter started, Krishna concluded in this way that Arjuna, be a yogi, but what kind of yogi? Be a bhakti yogi. And be a bhakti yogi by which you can bring your mind in touch with me. And therefore, now that you understand that, therefore, naturally, the 7th chapter begins with how one can increase our one's attachment to Krishna. So, what is the entry point for practicing that bhakti yoga that 6th chapter culminated in? So, Krishna, this first verse of the 7th chapter is very, very important. It has got a lot of points of practical application that we can take in and try to incorporate in our life. So how does the verse start? So Krishna speaking, so Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, Mai asakta manah partha yogam yunjan madashraya asanchayam samagram mam yatha gyasyasi tat shrunu. So you can see Krishna is carrying the thread from the 6th chapter, therefore yogam yunjan, which means that while you are engaged in performing yoga, because Krishna already stated that become a yogi, so you're performing a yoga. And how you're performing a yoga? Madashraya, by taking shelter of Krishna. Mad ashraya. Mad means my, ashraya, my shelter, Krishna is saying. And in this way, if you bring your mind in intense attachment to me, so if you want to achieve that kind of intense attachment to me while you are practicing yoga, and at the same time, what's going to happen? Asanchayam samagram mam yatha gyasyasi. So you would know Krishna in full, samagram, and asanchaya. Asanchaya means without a speck of doubt. If you want to achieve that state, then what do you have to do? Then shrunu. Shrunu means hear. So this verse, like, you can read it in reverse. That actually gives an interesting sequence. So if you read it in reverse, you can see that shrunu means to hear. Okay. If you hear, what's going to happen? Yatha gyasyasi. You will know. Know whom? Know Krishna. So mam, right? Know Krishna. So if you hear, then what's going to happen? You will know about Krishna. Know Krishna samagram, which means fully. Okay. So then samagram mam gyasyasi. Then if you keep going in the reverse direction, asanchayam. Asanchayam means, so when you know Krishna fully, that means your doubts will be dispelled. Okay. The doubts will be dispelled. And when the doubts are dispelled, then what is going to happen? Mad ashraya. You can take shelter of Krishna properly. So then if the doubts are dispelled, then what's going to happen? You'll take shelter of Krishna. So you take shelter of Krishna while performing yoga, right? Any form of yoga. But then here, Krishna already stated in the last verse of the 6th chapter, which kind of yoga you're performing? Bhakti yoga, because Krishna already stated that that's the best form of yoga. So there is no point in thinking otherwise. So therefore, taking shelter of Krishna while performing yoga is going to be easy when the doubts are dispelled. And then when one is taking shelter of Krishna while performing yoga, then what's going to happen? Maya sakta manah partha. Then mind will get intensely attached to Krishna. So in this way, you can actually read this particular verse in the reverse direction to see the cause and effect relationship. So overall, what Krishna is saying, that if you want to know Krishna in full, without a speck of doubt, and with mind intensely attached. So asakta means intensely attached to Krishna, while engaged in yoga and taking shelter of Krishna, then what we have to do? So keep entry point for the bhakti yoga is hearing. So hearing is the key process to increase our attachment to Krishna. Okay, so let me elaborate a little more. So generally, when we talk about hearing, you can say there could be two kinds of hearing. One hearing could be with envy in the heart. So what kind of hearing is that when there is envy in the heart? We have the experience in this material world how the mundane conversations happen. Usually people talk and they like to talk about themselves in order to share how great they are, right? And what happens to the persons who are hearing? They are also hearing out of envy. So externally, out of politeness, they may say, that's great. But internally, how they're processing typically is they're saying in their mind, so what? I'm also great. I mean, you have so many achievements. I also have so many achievements. Your children are great. My children are also great. So in this way, this is the mode of envious hearing. And so there is a so what business, and then there is also a strong disconnection from the subject matter that is being mentioned in the course of the discussion. So we can also, because from now onwards, you will see the frequency of the usage of first person singular. So you can see just in the first verse, how many times Krishna used first person singular? Mam, Mai, right? Mad. These are all referring to himself. Krishna is referring to himself in first person singular. There is no ambiguity here. Is he talking about universal consciousness here? No, Krishna is standing in front of Arjuna, speaking in relation to himself as the supreme person. So from just in the 7th chapter itself, you will find Krishna speaks close to more than 50 times. Just in this 7th chapter, it just contains 28 verses. So pretty significant reference to himself. So typically when we hear someone speaking about himself, we say, oh, that person is so arrogant. And we tend to just dismiss. But here, that's why Krishna had clarified his divinity in the 4th chapter. So that we know, here is no ordinary person who is speaking about himself. In fact, We should be surprised that Krishna is only referring to himself 50 times, because Krishna is infinite. So there are infinite glorifications in association with Krishna. So the point is that when we are hearing with strong envy in our heart, with ahankar, pride in our heart, then we will not hear what actually Krishna is trying to communicate. We will not benefit much. So if we hear in this way, this so what mode, and in this kind of disconnected mode, there is not much to gain out of the whole Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita will not actually help much here. And therefore, hearing must be done free from envy. And particularly when we are hearing from Krishna, there is no question of so what. Here we have a relationship with Krishna. We are all parts and parcels, servants of Krishna. So if we are parts and parcels of Krishna, then Krishna is our supreme Father. So we can internally feel how great is our Father. So if we see our relationship, if we factually internalize our relationship with Krishna, with every word that we are hearing, there will be sort of intensification of attachment to him. Oh, how great is our Father. So if we are hearing without envy, then what will result in is actually love for Krishna, that asakti, that intensification of attachment. That's what is going to happen. So please, my request would be, from now onwards, let's just try to hear with a strong sense of attachment, or at least with the aspiration to get attached to Krishna. Because after all, that is the goal of life. The goal of life is to revive our forgotten relationship with Krishna. Right now, we are all suffering. We are all suffering because we are all under amnesia. We are all suffering from amnesia. We have forgotten our primordial connection with Krishna. And we have to somehow come out of this. And so when we are hearing, that is like acting as a constant reminder of our eternal connection with the Supreme Lord. So please, let's try to understand this, that this is where we want to be. And therefore we want to hear without envy and try to hear with rapt attention. Okay. So now when we talk about hearing, so I just, because here this process is given, how we should be hearing. So I thought of expanding a little bit more. So these are tips for high quality hearing. So hearing should ideally go through 4 basic phases. This is coming from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So first thing is that we have to hear from the right source. Because in this world, every moment we are hearing something. And there is so much of variety of sound vibrations that are there for us to catch on to. But if we are receiving whether instructions or hearing the sound vibrations coming from those who are bona fide representatives of an authorized disciplic succession, then that kind of hearing would at least set the standard for the quality of the sound vibration. We discussed this in the beginning of the 4th chapter, that there are 4 authentic sampradayas or disciplic successions. So there is the Shri, Vaishnava Sampradaya. So that's Sripad Ramanujacharya is one of the prominent acharyas. And here, the knowledge originated from Krishna, and then Lakshmi Devi was the next recipient, and then the knowledge went downward. And then there are other sampradayas like Kumar Sampradaya, where there are four Kumaras hearing the knowledge from Krishna, and then they are passing down the knowledge. And here the prominent figure in the Kumar Sampradaya is Nimbarkacharya. And then there is Rudra Sampradaya, where the prominent Acharya is Vishnu Swami, where Krishna speaking the message to Lord Shiva and the knowledge going downward. And then there is Brahma Sampradaya, where Krishna is speaking the message to Lord Brahma, and then Brahma speaking to Narada. Narada speaking to Vyasadeva. And in this way, the knowledge somehow or other came down to Srila Prabhupada. So this authenticates this chain of disciplic succession is authenticating what we are receiving, whether that is bona fide or not. Therefore, hearing from the right source is the first entry point. Okay. Now, after we hear, okay, so let's say we are hearing from Srila Prabhupada. So hearing meaning, let's say we are playing an audio lecture of Srila Prabhupada. So what are we to do? So first thing is that whatever we are hearing, it's not that it's going through one ear and coming out of another ear. No, we are supposed to receive the message into our heart. Therefore, the first step is mananam. So after shravanam. So mananam means you're reflecting on the message with a desire to understand. So we reflect on the instructions with an attempt to understand them fully. And then mananam should be followed by nididhyasanam. Nididhyasanam means there is not only we are trying to understand, we are also wanting to apply. So it is further contemplation how I can apply. And application typically happens in specific circumstances of life. So we reflect on the message and then we contemplate on the specific circumstances of life how what we are hearing could be applicable in my own life. So that essentially chewing the message further. So you can actually see this as like how a cow goes through the process of rumination, right? So the cow, first of all, just eats everything and then it brings back into a particular chamber, and then the cow ruminates, just continues to chew on whatever it has swallowed before. So this is kind of like that. We are chewing on what we are hearing. And then most importantly, the reflection and contemplation are going to be beneficial when there is vandanam, which means that there is a prayerful mood to ultimately receive realization. Now, this is very important. So basically, what is going in through the hearing process is gyan. And what is coming out when we are receiving realization, so when we are applying the instructions, then we are really in that prayerful mood that please reveal this to me, because these are mysteries. Even if we are hearing, we may not be able to catch everything. And therefore, we need some level of mercy to act. And therefore, realizations are gifts from Krishna, which actually consummate the hearing process. So Gyan converts into Vigyan. So this was, you can say, theory. And this is realization. And then there is this whole yatha gyasyasi. There is knowing Krishna in full. Now, what does it mean by knowing Krishna in full? Who can understand Krishna in full? I mean, if you think about it, so Krishna and Krishna's glories are infinite. But if you think about our mind, mind, if you think like a container, it's a finite container. How can it hold something that is infinite? In other words, this is essentially divine revelation. It is not up to us. It is not dependent on our own capacity. So therefore, these realizations are going to be gifts from Krishna for us to understand. So knowing Krishna in full, so Krishna, you can say, you can know Krishna conceptually. And you can know Krishna in detail. So conceptually, it's possible to know Krishna in full. In detail, it's impossible, because the detail about Krishna is infinite. So one can understand, one can develop a thorough understanding of who Krishna is to the extent that we can function in our loving relationship with Krishna. All right. So now Krishna starts his divine revelation. So if you see, the chapter is called Knowledge of the Absolute, right? So this chapter is going to unfold knowledge about the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. So divine, this is the beginning of divine revelation. The first section is how Krishna is the source of everything. Okay, so this is the stepping stone to act in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so first of all, what Krishna is saying here is that what I'm going to reveal to you is going to be complete knowledge. Krishna is saying asheshataha. 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 So asheshataha means there cannot be anything beyond this, nothing remains to be known after this. Okay, so jnanam te aham savijnanam idam vakshyami asheshatah. And this last part is very interesting. Yaj gyatva neha bhuyo anyaj. So yaj gyatva bhuyo anyaj gyatavyam avashishyate. After knowing this, there will be nothing else remaining to know. So what is Krishna revealing? Krishna is saying, Jnanam te aham sa vijnanam. So I am presenting this ultimate knowledge in two divisions. There is Jnanam and Vijnanam. So Jnanam, as I was explaining, is theoretical knowledge. And Vijnanam means realized knowledge. So theoretical knowledge, typically, you can see, like, it's usually within the range of our perception. And realized knowledge is beyond the range of our perception. So what gets us from Jnanam to Vijnanam? It is the application. So Krishna is going to reveal a lot of knowledge which pertains to the theoretical knowledge or phenomenal knowledge. So Prabhupada here in the second verse translated beautifully with apt words. So this is phenomenal. And Vijnanam is translated as numinous. So phenomenal is that which is in the seen realm, that which we can access with our senses. So seen, what is possible to see. And numinous is something that is unseen, or that which is practical knowledge, which comes through. So this is unseen realized knowledge. So in other words, in order to go into the Vigyan, there has to be some kind of application. So in other words, when we are hearing this section, of course, we already rejected the path which is where the heart is filled with envy, with pride. We don't want that. So even when we are hearing, so hearing with faith, right? This is going to definitely lead us in the direction of the knowledge of the absolute truth. But that hearing has to be coupled with a process, so which we generally refer to as sadhana. So sadhana, for example, chanting the holy names. So the point is that this application, like the process of sadhana, is what actually is going to graduate us to move from theoretical plane to a realized frame. So in other words, if we are hearing with faith, definitely we'll get some knowledge. But in order for us to even go into the realm of Vigyan, we need the help of also something that we can integrate in our life, like the chanting of the holy names, which is going to help us further allow this knowledge to grow and appear as realized knowledge. Okay. And as I said, the significant part of this second verse is that Krishna is saying that this being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. When Jesus Christ came, he explained that I have actually a lot more to share, but you do not have ears to listen. This is exactly opposite of that. Here Krishna is saying that I am presenting to you everything. Upon hearing this, there is nothing else for you to know. There is no department of knowledge that gives this level of assurance that after you have known this, there is nothing else remaining for you to know. Every single thing that we study is just a build-up. It's a build-up for more knowledge to come into our life. So this is pretty significant statement. So there is nothing else remaining to know beyond this. So we should be curious. So before that, Krishna offers a caution. So now here again, like this, but the 7th chapter started with Yatha Gyasyasi. It's all about knowing Krishna in full. That's where we are headed towards. So Krishna is offering a caution that don't be surprised if there are only a few aspirants who are going to take the message seriously. And we can also see in the conference call, just by the number we can see how many are genuinely interested to move forward in the journey of spiritual life. So Krishna is saying that Manushyanam Sahasreshu. This is a little bit of calculation we can do. Manushyanam Sahasreshu. Sahasra means 1,000. Out of 1,000, so Manushyanam. So it's not 1,000 living entities. It's specifically called Manushya. Manushyanam. It's significant because cats and dogs cannot endeavor for perfection in their bodies. They are driven by instincts. So bare minimum, we need to be in the human form of life. So if you think about from a just a species standpoint, if you think about this is the overall species of life, there's a very small portion that is human species, right? So out of these humans, right, if you now elaborate this and make this as a human land, this is all species. This is humans. So a very small fraction of that is human. And if you take the human species, right, it's just 1 out of 1,000 they are endeavoring for perfection. Very small portion is going to endeavor for perfection. So yatati siddhe. And yatatam api siddhanam. Yatatam api siddhanam means among those who are endeavoring for perfection, there are only going to be a chosen few who are going to achieve perfection. But Krishna is saying that even among those who are achieving perfection, which is going to be a very small fragment already, but even among those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Kaschin mam vetti tattvataha. This word tattvataha is significant, which means knowing Krishna as he is not easy. So from just the previous chapter, we saw the gradations, right? Sometimes, sometimes those who are, let's say, practicing karma yoga. So you can see that this is the general progression. Karma yoga, Gyan yoga, Dhyan yoga, and then there is Bhakti yoga. So we saw that the tapasvi bhyo, that belongs to Dhyan yoga, then Jnani bhyo, Karmi bhyo, we saw, and Tasmat yogi bhavarjuna. So Krishna in the 6.46, he brought these distinctions. So a karmi or karma yogi may think that, hey, this is for those who are hardworking. This is for those who are hardworking. A jnani or jnana yogi may think that this is for those who are intellectuals. And dhyan yogi may think that this is for those who are really austere, you know. So they may think like that. But a bhakti yogi is for whom? For those who are sentimentalist. So in this way, they may say like that. But unfortunately, that is actually not true. In fact, all of these things, all of these qualities need the touch of bhakti for success. So in other words, this is a place which actually is a graduation level for all these forms of yoga. And that's why Krishna in the 6.47 helped us understand that. So point is that, so Manushyanam Sahasreshu, so that at the lowest level there are karmis who are not even interested in any spirituality. They are just fruitive activities. So they are not even yatatam api siddhanam. They are not even trying to endeavor for perfection. Yatati siddhaye. They don't belong into this category. They are just after sense gratification. If something is giving me pleasure, I'm happy. And I just plan for accentuating that pleasure. That's all I care about. So here, this group of people are not even endeavoring for perfection. Here, there are groups that are endeavoring for perfection. So they may be endeavoring for perfection. So Krishna is saying that out of all these, these will be only 1 out of 1,000 out of these is able to somehow or other reach the place where one achieves perfection. No, sorry, not achieves, sorry. 1 out of 1,000 is endeavoring for perfection. And out of these, a very small fraction, so this is not true, this is not sentimentalism, but actually Bhakti Yogi is that which is consummating these other qualities. And therefore, in one sense, all of these, you can say, can come within the fold of Bhakti Yoga. So in other words, one is performing austerity. You can do that with love and devotion, then it becomes graduated to Bhakti Yoga. Okay, you are engaged in pursuit of knowledge. If you try to connect with love and devotion, that becomes Bhakti Yoga. You are working very hard. You're hardworking and even doing that without attachment to results. Now, if you start dedicating for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, then you graduate to Bhakti Yoga. So in this way, this is the realm where there is some success. So out of many endeavoring for perfection, there are few, a chosen few, who graduate to the success level. But even within those who are graduating, there are only a few, maybe one, who may know Krishna. So one out of many, this number is not stated. Out of many of these who have attained success. So if you have to multiply, you can see 1 by 1000 is those who are endeavoring for perfection. Then you multiply with 1 by many who are attaining perfection. And then out of that, you multiply again 1 by many. Out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly this is the category that actually know Krishna in truth, know Krishna factually. So you can associate any figure here. It is probably going to be more than 1000. Here we are kind of doing a probabilistic calculation. What would be the probability for someone to actually come to a stage where they may know Krishna in truth? So if you associate these figures, you can see that this is going to be greater than 1000. So even if you take 10,000, and even here if we take 10,000, you can see the number is going to be extremely small, extremely small. And given the human population, we can see that if we even can get 1 out of 7 billion, here we have already achieved how many zeros? More than 9 zeros already there, right? So even we can see out of all the 7 billion population, even to get one person to know Krishna in truth is hard. So this is the level at which we are discussing. So how rare it is to know Krishna. So how serious we have to be in order to achieve this perfection. That's what we have to worry. Okay, so now Krishna is beginning his knowledge. So this is again belonging to the realm of jnana, belonging to the jnana. So jnana is, Krishna is presenting theory right now. Okay. So Krishna begins in this way. So Bhumir Apo Analo Vayu. So Bhumi, Apo, Anala, Vayu, Kham, Mana, Buddhi, Ahankara. So Bhumi Rapo Analo Vayu Kham Mano Buddhi Revacha Ahankaram iti yam me bhinna prakritir ashtadha. So Krishna is saying that there are 8 separated energies. There are 8 elements that constitute Krishna's separated material energy. So this energy, these 8 in number, they are considered to be inferior. And we'll see why. This is in the next verse. So these are inferior energies of Krishna. Because Krishna in the next verse is saying that aparayam itastvu anyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayadam dharyat jagat. So but besides this inferior, apara, so apara means inferior, there is another anya, that is Krishna's superior energy, which is param, and that is referred to as the living beings or Jiva Bhutam. So living beings means where there is consciousness, or you can say living beings or sentient beings. Sentient beings. And these living beings, they are engaged in what? In utilizing the inferior energies that Krishna placed 8 in number. So dharyate jagat. So this, by whom this material manifestation is being dharyate or utilized. Okay, so now let's try to understand this. So Krishna is saying, I have 9 different kinds of energies. So Krishna's energies, there are 2 kinds. There is apara and para. Apara means inferior. It's inferior because there is no consciousness. Para means superior, because there is endowed with consciousness. The apara further is divided into 2. There is gross. So you can also see this as there is material energy and spiritual energy. So the material energy is of 2 kinds. There is the gross form and there is the subtle. So gross is that which you can accessible or perceptible or perceivable to our physical senses. So physical senses meaning the eyes, the nostrils, the ear, the skin and the tongue. Right? These are our physical senses. So gross is that which is accessible to our physical senses. Subtle is that which is not accessible to our senses. Okay, so there are 5 gross elements. So this is what earth, so bhumir, apo, water, fire, air and ether, and 3 subtle, which is mind, intelligence and ego. So mano, buddhi, ahankar. Okay. Now, in physical terms, these can be referred to as solid, liquid, plasma, gas, and space. If you want to see it in more contemporary physical terms. Gas. Okay. Now, if you look at the modern science, there had been always a quest to find what are the fundamental building blocks or elemental forms of matter. So here also Krishna is talking about fundamental building blocks. What are the fundamental? Okay, so when I was studying science, at that time, we had only talked about the proton, neutrons, electrons within an atom. But then beyond that, there are further studies, and then they found that there are quarks, which are again building blocks for protons and the neutrons and so on and so forth. In other words, there is a continuous study going on, And the way generally the modern science approaches the study of the fundamental building blocks or fundamental elements is that they have, you can say, that which smash. So they use particle smashers, so there's a particular instrument in Switzerland. It's called FHC. It's called Fast Hadron Collider. So this machine is generally used to, what they do is that they try to smash the particle to see, like, can you actually break it down into even smaller pieces in order to recognize what is the most fundamental thing that is governing everything. So in other words, the approach that the science takes is a destructive approach in order to figure out what is the building block, and then there is no way they can decide that ultimately this is the final conclusion that I have as the fundamental building blocks. So the periodic table, where we list down all these elements, they are also kind of in a constant flux. I mean, since I have studied science, it has already changed quite significantly. So likewise, there is going to be, as far as science is concerned, you can think of, when we talk about science, it's a realm of empiricism. And so there is a realm of empiricism, and then there is a realm of realism. The science is very, very happy as long as the observed data, or through empirical observations, if it can do two things. One is that it can create practical tools which we can use in our day-to-day life to increase our convenience. And the second, if it can lead to predictions which can help humanity maybe ward off some danger, or just kind of be able to use it towards further advancement of knowledge. So generally the science is employed in the direction of practical tools and predictions, and it's quite successful in doing that. So it is not so much concerned about achieving the completeness of the information. So it's happy with sort of like a good enough. Okay, let me write down properly. It's happy as long as it's a good enough model, so that, like, there are practical applications or tools are coming out which can keep the human species on a trajectory of evolution, so to speak. Evolution in the sense, the evolution of the conveniences, not so much about human beings evolving into some other species. So as long as there are practical convenient items, it's good. And it also good, like, if you're able to predict certain things to avoid danger, that's great. But when it comes to our scriptures tend to be a little more authoritative, and it tries to get into an eternal quest. It tries to fulfill the eternal quest for what is most fundamental and real, So in this way, there is sort of like a slight different area of focus. But there is nothing wrong with science but it is just that the science is going to remain inconclusive. So there is, if you think about science and spirituality, and especially I'm talking about the spiritual knowledge coming from Bhagavad Gita in this context and other such Vedic literatures. So science and spirituality, they can converge, provided the science has really evolved to a degree that has reached a level of maturity that it can hit upon the area of realism. It has to kind of really enter into the space where it has known every single thing perfectly. But unfortunately, there are many subtle elements to the spiritual descriptions which are generally not touched upon in the science. And therefore, it becomes hard for them to converge. And therefore, ideally, what we should be doing is that we should try to bring these two together. So rather than dismissing science, because there are many important affordances that have been awarded by all these scientific inventions and discoveries, and we should acknowledge their progress. But then there are many areas which are never going to be touched upon just because it has a different areas of focus. So the science and spirituality, from my perspective, they are meant to be synergized, understanding that they are always going to coexist, because the approach that is taken by the Bhagavad Gita, as you can see, is no longer destructive, because it's destructive because it is on an eternal quest for finding out reality in an ascending fashion. And you're trying to just know something by breaking things down, by taking a reductionist approach. But the way the Bhagavad Gita is presenting information is a constructive approach. It's a constructive approach where Krishna is saying that these are the 8 elements. These are the 8 elements. And there is nothing else for you to know as far as the material is concerned. And then plus there is one spiritual. So there are total of 9 energies of Krishna. And there is nothing else that you need to know. And these are the fundamental building blocks that constitute everything: earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So if you want to pictorially see this, so these are the physical elements. So earth, water, fire, air, and ether. So you can see this, the direction is from gross to subtle. So this is the subtlest, the ether. So we have our senses, which actually extract the physically observable elements out of matter, and they pass. So these are the subtle elements that are extracted: so sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. And then they're passed into the subtle senses, which we cannot physically see. So mind, intelligence, and ego for processing. And then ultimately the soul has a relationship with Krishna. So if you see, this is the gross layer, which is what we can physically see. And then this is the subtle layer. And this is the spiritual layer. So I think I can stop here for today. We will continue. There's a lot to develop on this point. I want to see whether you have any questions or comments. Any question or comment?
No, I think this was beautiful. It's very well done. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, we have a lot. This whole chapter, unfortunately, would require me to go and bring a few things from the realm of modern science, just so that you can appreciate the topics, because this whole section is just filled with gems.
one thing which kind of caught me was an earlier statement that you made was that in a sense that you're trying to absolve yourself of your own ego, and at least the way that you presented the chapter, Krishna saying, this is all that constitutes me and nothing else. So it almost seems like there's a sense of ego associated with sharing that. And I think I'm being kind of nitpicky with the whole thing, but I mean, he's kind of imparting this knowledge and sharing this information and saying that this is the absolute, but you can almost kind of misperceive that as him being potentially arrogant.
Yeah, so that's exactly what I was clarifying, that we can hear with exactly that mood, you know. That's what I was saying. So that because Krishna has every reason to present himself like that, because he is the supreme personality of Godhead. So the point here, there's a very important point that you brought up. Okay. So our arrogance, right, is a platform of falsity, because we are trying to become what we are not, you know. In the case of Krishna, his expressing everything as ultimate, you know, is the platform of reality. So humility, you can see, I like to translate humility as proximity to reality.
Okay.
This is the definition of humility. So when Krishna is presenting himself as the summum bonum of everything, as the source of all, that is reality. And therefore, that is his humility. You understand? But when we are presenting ourselves as great and so on and so forth, that's a platform of falsity. And therefore, it's arrogance.
But I think it's beautiful, you know, in terms of all the 8 and 9 energies that are there to at that time in such a quick manner kind of disclosing everything. You know, obviously there's something way beyond what any of us normally have or would ever be able to have. You know, it's
Right.
just the divine knowledge just flowing and oozing from Krishna. It's amazing.
Yeah, it is bound to be amazing, because Krishna is that's what he's going to reveal very soon in 7.7. There's absolutely no truth that is superior to him.
Yeah.
And therefore, who can release this knowledge? You know, like when we are wanting to understand a particular appliance that we may have purchased, we may try and figure it out how it works. But then there is also manufacturer's a manual that came along with it, because manufacturer best knows how to use that appliance.
Sure.
Right? So likewise, so here, everything comes from Krishna. So who else would carry the authority to give us that knowledge in complete sense? There's nobody else. And therefore, we are extremely fortunate that Bhagavad Gita is still there. You know, it's not lost, because it carries the whole clue about all the secrets of the universe, all encoded in this one book.
You know, I had one comment additional to make, and I'm not sure how easy or hard it is, but when you're reading the verse from the Gita, is it possible to have it on the screen at that time when you're reading it?
I actually encourage everyone, like in the first meeting itself, I have to say that, okay, everyone should have a copy of Bhagavad Gita along with them.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm asking all of you to do.
No, I get that, but I'm saying that when you're watching these things, even otherwise, and you're presenting them, if you have that verse there as you're reading it, it would, I think, be useful and helpful, because sometimes you're doing this away, you don't have the book with you or doing anything, so
Okay.
it would make it more comprehensive right in your presentation itself.
Okay.
It
So
doesn't have
maybe I can try to put. Okay, thank you for the feedback. Maybe I can put on the corner, like just the verse itself somewhere. Yeah, that's a good feedback. I'll do that. Thank you.
if it's not too much work. And
No.
thinking in terms
I
of
will.
moving forward.
Yeah, so thank you for your suggestion. I mean, anything that helps, I'm happy to do. Anything that helps. Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. Yeah,
Thank you for
one thing that I'm unable to meet my promise is to contain all these discussions within 30 sessions. It's just impossible for me because I myself would not feel very happy if I am just rushing through these materials.
right.
Um,
You've
therefore,
spent a lot of time preparing all this stuff. This is like a labor of love for you as well.
oh, definitely.
I mean, there's people, I mean, when I was a kid, I read through the Bhagavad Gita, or not a kid, a young adult, whatever, but no way did I ever have any depth of knowledge and understanding. And honestly, I'm moved to go back to it and read it again. I haven't been reading it right now. I have to find my copy of the Gita and read it, but I've been partaking in these discussions, and I've been getting just a lot from it.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this because that's the intention of this whole thing. And you can thank Gaur Sati Mataji who suggested to start this one.
Oh, Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you. I'm very grateful for getting this knowledge, because even though I read Bhagavad Gita and I'm practicing Krishna consciousness, but I'm still learning so much. Could you just tell us when we can expect the recording to be ready? Because that way I can just tell my sister. I know she intended to. Yesterday she said she would tune in, but all her kids are visiting her this weekend, so I'm not sure what happened, why she didn't tune in.
No problem.
But I know she's gonna be asking me right away, when is the thing available?
I will make it available right after this session, maybe. Okay.
Perfect. And now also, I'm gonna send you her email address. Somehow or the other, she's not on any of the emails because she sort of started coming through me, and she feels like sometimes she wants to share something with you, or she wants to thank you or something, and she doesn't know how to contact you. So if you just please add her to your next email alert, then she'd feel much better.
I will definitely do that. Thank you so much. No problem.
Thank you, Prabhu.
No problem. All right. Any other point of discussion anybody would like to bring?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Actually, I have one more thing.
Go ahead, Vikas.
You were talking about all these people endeavoring, and then all these the minuscule number of people that actually attain moksha or unity with Krishna, or I don't know how to describe it. It just seems like such an arduous and a infinitesimally small thing. It almost makes people kind of disdainful. It's why even bother? Their chances of getting there are not existent.
Yeah, but the thing is that we are so constituted that we can achieve the maximum potential for happiness when we operate from that highest platform. So either we rot in this material world or we make incremental progress in that direction, So that's why the last section of the 6th chapter was so much, I would say, confidence boosting and faith nurturing, where Krishna is giving an assurance that nothing will be ever lost. Whatever progress we make, right, in this path, that is to our eternal credit. There is nothing in this material world that we can say that we made some progress and we can pick up from the next life. Let's say we became the president of the United States this year, in this life, and we die. In the next life, we might be born as a dog, There is absolutely nothing that material that we can carry forward in our next journey.
Right.
But the spiritual assets that we gain, they all remain permanent. And that is the biggest gain. And minimally, we will have a human form of life where we can practice further. And Krishna even mentioned Shuchinam Srimatam Gehe. Even after a short practice, if we fall down, even then we'll get born into the family where there are all the conditions conducive for us to practice spiritual life. So therefore, we should not reject just because it is rare. We should not reject. There are so many things in this world that are very difficult to achieve. Don't we shoot for them? We shoot for them as a challenge. Everyone, even in their resume, they write, right? I like a challenging job, So if we like challenges, this is the challenge that we want to adopt. That I want to achieve perfection in this one human life. And that is the challenge that Krishna is throwing at us. Tyaktva deham punarjanma nayati mamiti suarjuna. This is the mission statement of the Bhagavad Gita stated in the 4.9. That in this one life, I want to achieve perfection. Do whatever. I'm going to give you all the processes. And guess what? We are actually, in one sense, born in the best possible yuga. I mean, in one sense, this yuga is filled with distractions. And because it is filled with distractions, the process had been made extremely simplified. So it is said that Kaler dosha nidhe rajan asti hi eka mahan guna kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sanga param vrajet. That although this age of Kali, right, this iron age is filled with faults, Kaler dosha nidhe rajan, but asti hi eka mahan guna. But this particular age also has got one prime benediction. And what is the benediction? Kirtana deva krishnasya mukta sanga param vrajet. We can achieve this highest perfection of life simply by taking on the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So therefore, as I was mentioning, in order for this knowledge to really settle down in our heart and to kind of act in our progressive journey, we have to also adopt the process. And that will form a positive feedback loop. The positive feedback loop is that we are hearing, right? We are hearing and we are practicing. That practice is basically chant. Then we can hear better. This is like a positive feedback loop.
Sure.
And that's what we want to enter into in order to make this happen. Okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Satut Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Yes, I
Krishna.
wanted to ask that, so in 7.2, you said that, here Krishna says that he will declare to Arjuna in full, this being known, nothing further shall remain for you to know. And you said that, but when Lord Jesus Christ says that basically,
Yeah, you don't have ears to listen. I have much more to share.
yep. Do you have a reference for that? I was trying to find it, but I could not.
Yeah, I can. I'm paraphrasing, obviously. I will share with you offline, okay? On email. I'll
Okay,
follow.
thank you.
No problem. Anything else? All right. So if there is nothing else, we'll stop here.
Hare Krishna.
And thank you very much.